Welcome, everybody. Welcome to Backwoods. Glad to see the chat room. We got some people in there, and it's always great to have people in the chat room. I got a super guest on tonight. I met him on Facebook. I've met a whole lot of really cool people on Facebook the last couple of months. A lot of you know that we've only been in operation for about 4 months and are growing real strong, real fast. It's taken off good. We've got a lot of good shows. I like to think my show's pretty good, but we've got a better one that is going to be taking my place in a couple of weeks. Running the network, doing the promoting, trying to visit with everybody on Facebook, and there's so many people there, and Twitter, and then trying to keep up with the website. I just do not have enough time to do the show every week, and but hopefully maybe I'll come in once in a while and do a show and visit with somebody else from Facebook. Here in a couple of weeks, like I mentioned, we're going to have a new show, and I'm going to introduce him next week on my show, my last show. I had him on as a guest here a couple of weeks ago, and his name is Tad Camp. He has Urban Survivalist Strategies, a YouTube site, and he posts quite a few of them YouTube videos on Facebook and other places. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. There's some pretty good videos. But what really impressed me was just sitting down and talking to the man. He very knowledgeable. He is a retired police officer, but he's involved in so much more than that. Just an amazing person. Law enforcement officer, undercover vice detective. These are things he used to do. Now he's a private investigator, and he specializes in the recovery of missing and abducted children. His wife has a website also, and it's called Porch Patrol, and she's involved with another gal. I can't think of that gal's name right offhand, but she is the mother of Amber that created the Amber Alert, and she will be joining in on that show from time to time. And the name of the show is going to be called Prepper Logic. So it is going to be a prepper-related show and deal primarily with urban preppers, but with a lot of good ideas and, opinions for those that, live in the sticks, too. It's going to be for everybody, and I think you're going to be really impressed with it. I've been looking for somebody to take over my slot here on Friday nights for quite a while, and this is the man that's going to fill the bill, so I hope you'll tune back in and check that show out. It's going to be an exciting show, I'm sure it is. Tonight, I have a guest, and like I said, he's from Facebook also, and it's amazing the people that you run across there. And I tend to lean more towards the prepper, survivalist type people, the people that prepare, know how to prepare and be aware, that know how to take care of themselves. I do not like a whole lot of politics on my particular show. We do have a couple of shows that they talk about, be prepared because it's the politics that are going to crash us. Well, I like to talk about the actual preparing part. So I hang out or try to hang out with these people on Facebook. His name is Jamie Burleigh. Now, Jamie is he's an outstanding person. I just I started looking at photos and things he does and read a little bit about him. An amazing person. very much into survival, self-sufficiency, in making things. I mean, going back to nature, kind of making it hands-on. Gosh, I just, I ain't going to go a whole lot into it. I just want to bring Jamie on, introduce him, and then I'm going to have him tell us all a little bit about himself. Jamie, are you there yet?
I'm here.
How are you doing this evening? And I'm so glad you're here.
So am I. It's been a while since I actually talked on the radio.
Well, I'm glad you made it. And from all the things I've read, I would have thought that you've done it quite often. I do know that you're involved in teaching classes and seminars and that type of thing. But if you don't mind, let me give you the ball for a minute and just tell those that are in the chat room, I know a lot of them already know you, give them a shout out and tell the ones that don't know you, that are listening in, what you're about, what you do. Take off. Tell us a little bit, Jamie.
Well, my name's Jamie Burleigh. I live in Michigan with my wife and my 5 kids. It takes a lot of support from her to do what I do. First off, you know what I mean? It's quite hectic around here, and she allows me to get the time in that I need to get out and actually do these primitive skills. I teach classes. I teach the Boy Scouts, the Royal Rangers. I teach free classes at Gander Mountain. When I get a chance to, a slot to, I like to throw a free seminar in there or two and hopefully get some prospects out of that class. And I teach for Dave Canterbury, his bow class, and hopefully some primitive skills coming up here soon. I work with a lot of the hiking groups around town, around this area, and equestrian teams that actually like to go out and do a lot of hiking and backpacking, and they're interested in survival as well, just in case they get caught out in the woods, on a trail and get in a bad spot. They really like to know what to do. Let's see. I love making bows. I'm a bowyer at heart, but I'm multifaceted. I do a lot more than just make bows. Traps, snares, primitive fires, primitive pottery, spoons, bowls, cooking utensils, shelter. I make atlatls and darts, the primitive spear throwers. I study a lot of anthropology, just to learn about the Aboriginal skills and stuff. I've always had a knack for primitive skills, and it just drives me. It's what I wake up to every day, and I think about it all the time, 24/7. My brain is just programmed to primitive skills and being in the woods and dirt time. I just love it.
And I see Joshua just threw up there in the chat room all the fun stuff. Yes. And I've read, you sent me a little bit of a bio. When we started talking about doing this and everything. You've got 5 kids. You work also, or these things, all these ventures of yours, is that your work, or do you hold down a job as well, a regular?
I'm trying not to hold down a job, to tell you the truth.
Well, I wonder, how do you find time to do all these things, with the regular job?
I don't actually. I was unemployed for a long time, and I just kept in my garage, and I made a bow, and some people come over for little bow classes, like a little. Every other Sunday we'd get together and we'd make bows in my shop, in my garage. And it started to get bigger and bigger, and more people started to show up. And after I started making some bows, my bows would sell as soon as, before they were even done, they were selling. I'm like, man, maybe there's something behind this. I could make a little money on the side doing that. And then I started making fiberglass bows and back bows with heating ovens and glues and epoxies and recurves and Scythian bows and horse bows. And it got really time-consuming and expensive and kind of dangerous, and I just didn't have the time for it anymore. After I started making all these bows, I found out that there were deadlines to meet, and just like a regular job, I had a quota, a deadline, and people calling me every day to check in on what's going on, and it took the fun out of it. So I got a regular working job, and I went back to the grind for a while, went back to school, and I kind of got burnt out on that, and I went back to my roots, and I really enjoy teaching now. I really think, I believe in that motto, teach a man to fish, give a man a fish.
Yeah.
I'd rather teach a man to fish. I'd rather teach a person how to do all these skills that I have, because they're not that hard. They're really not that hard. It's just getting the right person to tell you how to do them or teach you how to do it. And I think I have a good knack for that.
Well, and it could be the way you watch our government and the economy and all that. There could be a day come soon when that's going to be some valuable knowledge for people to learn, to people to know. It wouldn't surprise me a bit having some kind of a collapse. You're not going to be able to go to the local grocery store. You're going to have to go out in the back 40 and find you something to eat and find a way to catch it. I can see that happening.
That's why I like bushcraft skills and primitive skills over just survival skills, because there's so much more to it. Because survival and survival techniques and survival classes are based around short-term or hopefully short-term situations, because you want to get found.
Right.
It's what to do to make you get through the situation you're in. So you don't want to be in that situation at all. With bushcraft and primitive skills, I think it's more thriving in the wild besides survival in the wild. You're actually taking advantage of the natural resources out there and actual thriving in it. You're part of it.
Right. Absolutely. Learning to live with the land and live on the land. I got a bunch of questions here for you that I've jotted down. Some of these things I kind of know the answers. Some of them I absolutely know nothing about. Many of those that are in the chat room, I'm sure, know a lot of these things, but there are a lot of people that are going to listen to this that are going to wonder, I wonder about that. But if you don't mind, I'm just going to kind of go through some of these things that you make and ask you some questions about them and enlighten me a little and those that are listening. And I kind of wanted to start with bows. I guess bows is one of your specialties. When you go to make a bow, are there specific woods or branches, or will any of them work, or are some better than others? What do you look for when you're going to make a bow?
You hit the nail right on the head. As far as bow woods go, depending on its size and dimension and how you make it, geometry-wise, you can make a bow out of just about anything, from a pine board to a fine locust stave. You just have to build it correctly. It has to be the certain width for the certain length, for the certain thickness that the limbs have to be, the proper tiller. You can make a bow out of almost anything. And if you can't, you can bundle it up and make a bundle bow, where multiple limbs or sticks or twigs are bending in unison, so you can make a bow. So I don't think there's anything that can't make a bow. There's some woods that make a better bow, for sure. That's what you want to learn how to look for. The ash, the hickory, the oak, the osage, the sassafras, the elm. I mean, there's a ton of bow woods out there, but some are basically better than others, and that's what you really want to look for. But if you're in a situation or an area where there isn't, it's time to experiment. And that's all I found out when I was young. I mean, I didn't have a bowyer for a father or a grandfather. I had to get out there and just start stringing up some sticks. I had to find out on my own what this was all about. And I can't tell you how many I broke in my face.
Yeah. Well, now, I got to ask you real quick. When you say bundle bow, I think my mind automatically went to like how you'll see a beam in construction, a lam beam, where they've taken 2x4s and they've just laminated one on top of the other to create a beam. Is that kind of the idea that you're talking about when you're saying bundle bow?
A bundle bow, think of it as a handful of straws. Just a bundle, a hand grip full of straws. And then you take 2 or 3 straws and pull them out about halfway. And then take the straws that are surrounding them straws and pull them out about halfway.
I follow you. Yeah.
You know, it's actual bundled up twigs, some that are longer than others, some that are shorter than others. The ones that are longer are at the ends and are tied to the shorter ones that are stiffer in the middle. And you don't really have to tiller that much because the bow is a makeshift or a survival bow at that, because you don't want to shoot a bundle bow all the time, because if you're putting all that time and effort into a bundle bow, you should be working on finding a real good bow wood and making a real bow.
Yeah.
But in a survival situation, a bundle bow is fine, and that's to use. Say there isn't any big trees around. What if they're all just shrubs and twigs, and you can make a bow out of that, and then out of the rest of the twigs you can make your arrows.
Yeah. Okay, another question. I'm assuming, and just correct me on all these questions if I'm wrong, but I'm assuming it would be like the harder or denser the wood would be, the stronger the bow, and would that, if that's correct, would it also be the harder to pull that bow?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You're absolutely right. And it has a lot to do with the elasticity of the bow. A bow, when you're looking for a bow wood, think of, I'll do a brief description on how to find the bow wood. Think of a wood lot, and you're looking for a bow wood or a stave out of that wood lot, and you're looking at the edges of the wood lot, and you notice one thing, and this is part of my awareness class. You notice that the trees are a little bit more twisty and bendy, and the limbs are bending towards the most area where the sun is shining on them all the time, because they reach for the sunlight to grow. And you notice with the prevailing winds how they're twisting in the opposite direction. Well, from the edge of the woodlot, you don't want to grab a stave like that, because of one, they're twisty, and they're going to twist on you because they naturally grow twisty, because one way the winds are fighting the tree, the other way the limbs are fighting to get the sun. What you want to do is step into the woodlot and get the saplings that are growing straight up through the canopy. They're searching for sunlight, but they're searching straight up. And if you are going to make a sapling bow or a bow, start out with a sapling bow, because one, there's less wood removal, so there's less energy or calories used. And then you're working with a straighter, more dimensionally sized stave, so there's less work to be done to have a finished bow. Look for what's obvious is the straighter limbs and the straighter trees that are growing inside the woodlot that doesn't have to fight against Mother Nature and the winds and the prevailing winds and the tension side or the compression side of the limbs that are hanging over into the field. Go into the woods and look for a straight stave.
Right. Okay. I want to go to. I want to get to strings here in a minute. Got some real questions about that, but I want to talk about arrowheads for a second. I was I was born in California, raised mostly in Oregon, and in southern Oregon and northern California. A lot of places in Oregon. I grew up around a lot of Obsidian, and I know that is used in or has been used for arrowheads. But tell me all the different, is it just too many to name? What are the different things you can use for arrowheads?
What I've had really good success with is the easier easier rock to nap. I've used Obsidian, which is like nature's glass. It's basically volcanic glass. My first experience with that was up at Glass Mountain in California, actually, up by the Redwoods. And I actually brought 70 pounds of it back, and I didn't realize how much that cost in shipping in my luggage on the way home at the airport. They were wondering why I was bringing a bunch of rocks back. They thought I had rocks in the head. But I had about 70 pounds of obsidian that I broke into a whole bunch of tiny pieces, and I made some heads out of it. And I like Novaculite from down south. That's a white, light-colored, buttery type stone that breaks really fantastic. Another stone that I like to use from out west is basalt. Basalt really breaks at a molecular, it breaks at such a small molecular level that every strike with the stone creates razor sharp edges, and that for a beginner, which I am a beginning flint napper. I'm not going to say that I'm an expert at that, but it's the beginning stones, and I like even napping glass from Thunder Chert, which is a toilet. You can make heads out of porcelain from toilet tanks. If you can't get any stone, use a porcelain from toilet tanks. That's a good idea if you're a prepper or you're a survivalist and you're scrounging in a junkyard. You may not have any arrowheads around you, but you got some tuna cans to make some arrowheads out of, tuna can lids, or you can make them out of porcelain pieces of toilet tanks, the way you break them. Glass, plate glass is really good to nap. It breaks just like obsidian. There's a plethora of stones you can use, and I like Flint Ridge. Flint Ridge is a little bit harder. I tried napping coral. That's at a little bit higher level than me, because I found out that I can't make a really good head out of that, but I do a lot of trading. What I don't know, I either trade for knowledge or trade arrows for, and I build my own arrows and I trade them for points, and that's probably what the Indians used to do. Yeah,
I'm sure. Barter. That's probably what we'll be doing in 5
I hope
10
so.
years.
I hope so.
When you say napping, you're talking about like chipping, are you not? Chipping edges and chipping into shape, breaking pieces off, basically. Huh?
Exactly. It's flint napping. You're actually creating a conchoidal fracture in the stone. And in layman's terms, that's just a convexual, I believe it's a convexual edge at a certain degree. Like when you shoot a BB gun at a piece of plate glass, there's like a tiny dot hole, and on the other side it busts out a cone shape. That's what you're trying. That's your goal when you're flint napping, is to get that conchoidal fracture into the stone, and you can actually plan out your stone removal that way. And as long as you know how how easy the stone breaks or how the stone is going to work for you, and if you're using copper tools or aboriginal tools, which is stones or antler billets or moose antler billets. Billets are little napping wands that break away the stone for you. It all depends on what means or what you're using to break the stone with. I mean, it just takes practice, and then what it takes is you to take the time and sit down and just start breaking some rock. That's all it is. And you will get the hang of it. It'll cost you a bunch of Band-Aids and a bunch of nicks and cuts and a bunch of dust in the house and a bunch of complaining.
Well, I would also assume that in a primitive knife would be the same concept as an arrowhead, just a larger version, basically.
Absolutely. It's just a cutting edge. But as being a survival or a prepper, any skilled woodsman will make use of a piece of glass, a sharp rock, a sharp edge of a can. It's being aware, and that's what I really like to teach in my classes. It isn't just a survival basics class or a primitive skills class. It's a woods and self-awareness class. Be aware. You didn't just see a bird fly by. Why did the bird fly by? In what direction? Is something coming? Did something scare it? What's
Right.
out there? Is there a field? Is it going to water or food? Is it chirping? Is there other birds following it? I mean, these are the questions you have to ask yourself. And I just got sidetracked for a second because I'm looking at two little squirrel paws hanging from my garage where I just skinned a squirrel out. And I just thought it was kind of ominous for a second. I'm like, what the heck is that? And I look over there, and it's two squirrel paws hanging down from the strings where I skinned it. I got to take care of that. That'll freak my wife out.
Okay, let's see, because there's a bunch of other stuff, but I want to touch on bowstrings too. You know, and all these things I want to talk primitive too. But what are the different materials that you could use to do a bowstring with? I got to tell you first. I was farting around the other day. I was going for a hike, and I just picked up pulled some reeds, some long plant reeds, and was just weaving them like a girl would weave her hair or whatever.
Like a braid?
Like a braid, yeah, exactly. And while I was on my hike, and I did this braid that wound up being about 3 foot long, and for as weak as each individual reed was, the braid was hell strong. I mean, is this a method that you would get into in bowstrings, or what options are there out there?
There's a lot of natural options, a lot more than people think, because what you did was absolutely fantastic. Because when you're seeking the knowledge to weave something or make natural cordage, you touch base on the basic and the most simplest form is just trying out materials. Like when I walk in the woods walk, I call it, and I teach my class, I don't tell them, oh, this is the big scientific name that they'll never remember plant that's good for cordage. I'll walk along and I'll touch and I'll feel and I'll pull on it with my hand, and if it pulls me back or it breaks and it has fibrous outer or inner strands, I take a second and I look and see if there's one, enough of it to actually make something useful, or two, I tear it apart and I see how to process it to get the strands to actually make the primitive cordage. And it's a really simple process of just laying some cordage in your one hand and then your other hand twisting away and over the top. That's what I teach for my bowstrings. That's what I teach for primitive cordage. It's just twisting away and over the top. If you were to take apart a natural jute rope or some heavy rope, that's exactly how rope is made. It's twisted away from itself and over the top.
Okay.
In the natural bowstrings with like nettle or dogbane or milkweed, there's lots of different bowstring materials, but the best, what I found, is badger hide or groundhog skin. That's the best, and then it goes down to squirrel skin. That's really good.
Uh-huh. Now, are you having to braid that as well too? These materials?
No, because the skins itself, when you stretch them out and you dry them, you skin the critter out and you scrape the flesh off, make sure there's no flesh or blood on it, and you pin it to a board and you salt it and dry it. And then after a couple weeks, it'll be hard like cardboard. And then you scrape the salt off it, and you cut the outer shape into an oval or a circle shape. And it doesn't matter if you leave the hair on or not. It's no big deal. It just makes natural silencers on your bowstring. But you cut a small lace out of the circle, and you just work your way towards the center, about cutting strips about 3/8 of an inch wide, and working your way to nothing in the center. And what you'll have is a curly cue of skin. And then what you do is place it in some lukewarm water for a couple hours, and put a rock or a plate over the container or a piece of wood, and then put a rock on top just to make sure that everything is submerged. And you take it out into the garage or outside and throw it over a branch, and you can tie a rock on one end, and you start twisting it. You twist 2 strands together, and it'll make a nice knotted up string for you.
Uh-huh.
And you let that dry overnight, and you tie it loops in the ends, and you put it on your bowstring, and you put it on your bow, and then you've got a nice bowstring for you.
Yeah. Does a person have to go to one of your classes? Do you have a website, or I know you've got Facebook and you show a lot of neat pictures and things up there, but do you have a website or anything?
I did, but it just got too tedious. I was spending more time on that stupid computer than I was in the woods, and I'm like, man, this can't be it. I love the computer, and I hate it at the same time. I love it that I can be in touch and contact with so many people and so many like-minded people doing the same things I'm doing. Right. But at the same time, I hate being on it as well, because it's just sucking the life right out of me. It's draining the time that I have, to my free time, to actually get out and do something. And that's the only way you learn, is getting out there and getting your hands dirty and just doing it. That's why I like teaching my classes, is just getting out there and trying it. A lot of times people ask me a question I don't know, and we just dive right into it, and some things I haven't tried. Some questions are totally off the wall that I've never done or never even thought of, but you know what? Let's try it and discover for ourselves.
Yeah, now Joshua in the chat room is saying that you've got a lot of videos up on YouTube, huh?
I have some. I trained. I have some classes that I trained with the Michigan militia guys, and I taught them how to make some survival bows and some trapping classes and snaring classes. And I have like a 9 or a 10-part series on making a survival bow in the woods, what to look for. From, I think in 2.5 hours, I went from a tree that I was cutting down with a knife. I made the whole bow with just a knife. And I went out in the woods, showed what to look for, cut it down, and within 2.5 hours, I was shooting a primitive arrow into a target with that bow.
Yeah.
All
now,
made with a knife.
If you mentioned it to me, it went right over my head, because if I had a thought, too, I would have maybe tried to search it or would have asked you anyway, but how would I go find, or anybody listening, find those YouTubes that you've done?
I believe the YouTube site is Mish Bow Guy. If you do a search on YouTube for Mish, M-I-C-H, Bow Guy, it'll go right to my page, because I believe that's just the name of the domain or whatever. I'm really computer illiterate, if you ask, but
you're not alone, trust me. I've had this crammed down my throat in the last 6 months. I'm getting pretty good at it, but I would rather be out in the woods too. But I'll tell you, it's pretty rewarding to share people like you and others that I have and others on this network to share your knowledge and how they can find these things of yours and others to see them. There's a lot of people that tune in to these shows to hear what we're talking about. I have a Facebook page that's dedicated to everything outdoors in the chat room, and it's an online chat. It's called 1 Foot in the Wild, and it has a lot of my good friends on there. And I didn't want to be the moderator of the whole thing. I didn't want to be the master in chief. I just wanted to be a part of it. And we have many people looking over the site, and really great guys. And you can get a hold of me there. It's called 1 Foot Into the Wild on Facebook, and or Primitive Michigan on Facebook. What I do is every time I go out or do something, I try and take a picture, and even if it's small as fletching up some arrows or
taking down some primitive shafts and working them with a knife. I'll take some pictures and post up about it. Just what I'm doing at the time, at the moment, because that's what it's all about. That I really, really like teaching people. I like teaching kids. I like getting the kids involved with it. I like showing people, as simple as, people are like, wow, why did you take that crooked piece of willow out of the ditch? I'm like, well, that's going to be an arrow. And they'll be like, it's so crooked and it's too thin. How are you going to make an arrow out of that? How are you going to put a knock on it? How are you going to notch it for an arrowhead? Well, I could go through the whole process just like I'm talking to you and on the phone, and nobody's going to really see the process unless they're there with me. And I like to show that. So that's why I like to get people and go on little walks and awareness walks.
Yeah.
There's so many things that the average person or even the skilled woodsman would miss. I mean, I was if I wasn't aware, for example, yesterday I went squirrel hunting with my kids, and I took them out. I watched my 6-year-old slowly walk over to my 15-year-old that's hunting just within sight, and I watched him. I was so proud of him walking through the woods, not making any noise, and he's all dressed in fluorescent orange so he doesn't get shot. And I'm watching he's glowing in the woods, just walking real quiet through the woods. And if I didn't just take the time and just observe where I'm at, I like to, when I squirrel hunt, I still hunt. And I'll take a step and I'll look around. And I'll look for anything out of the obvious or anything that's different or changing or moving. And if I wasn't so in tuned, I heard something and I just stayed there and I just didn't quite make out what it was. And I look above me, and about 3 foot over my head was a big paper wasp nest. If I was being all crazy and moving around and walking fast or being clumsy, I would have had a nest of a swarm of wasps all over me running through the woods. I'm telling you. I mean, just the small nuances. I was looking at the mushrooms that were growing late in the season. I was looking at the sulfur shelf and looking at the horsehoof fungus growing on the trees and looking at the chaga that was growing on the birch, and I was looking at the sap that was coming out of some fractures in some pine trees when I collect for making my primitive pitch glues for my arrowheads. I mean, I'm just, my mind is on overload with primitive stuff. I just would like to let somebody look into my brain for a little bit and see how I'm working.
Well,
there's so much out there.
I can see a little bit of it. I'm up in the mountains of northern Idaho. I'm about 30 miles south of Canada. And I've got a mountain right out my front door here, and occasionally when I need a break, I put on my boots and out the door I go, and I head up the mountain. And there'll be four-wheelers up there from time to time, and they'll look at me like, you got to be crazy hiking up here. But there's something that I get that they don't get, and that is I can hear. I can hear and I can see. There's so much that they're missing. They I know they're having a good time too, but they're not hearing and seeing the things that I am when I take that trek up into the mountains, and that's why I do it. Is just for that experience. The awareness, knowing what's going on around you.
Exactly. I love that. I love letting other people experience what I'm seeing. I'm in total bliss when I'm in the woods. And you know what? Lately I'm having a hard time driving, to tell you the truth, because I'm looking at all the wild edibles along the sides of the roads.
Well, it's just finishing up here, but we had huckleberry season not too long ago.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
Of course, that's a hike up into the mountains, and that's, watch out for bears when you're hunting huckleberries. But actually, never even seen a bear this year. Got to see lots of moose. We got lots of moose up here, but that's what it's about. That's getting back to reality, I think.
And treading lightly and just respecting the nature and using the dead downed leaves and trees, and there's so many resources that's on the ground that we're stepping and pushing away into the gutters and in our landfills and everything else. so much of that can be used. It's ridiculous. I hate to say it, but I live in a land of waste myself in the city, and I see the waste, and it just kills me. But sometimes I feel trapped. Sometimes I just feel trapped, and so I need to get out in the woods and experience what it really should be like. It clears my mind.
You had mentioned, I want to back up a minute, you mentioned glues. And tell me about wild glues. I know you had mentioned pine pitch. Just tell me about wild glues. How does it work? Do you have to mix this stuff? What kind of pitches are you talking about, and how strong is it? Tell me something about it.
Pine pitch glue is made from the pine pitch or the pine sap from any conifer tree or even birch tree. Birch, you have to boil a little bit. It turns into a tar, a sticky substance. But pine pitch has a property of getting hard and brittle the more you heat it. So it turns into a liquid state. The sticky sap turns into a liquid state when you heat it up in a container. And as it cools, some of the properties are burnt off, and it gets harder and harder. And
kind of like
sometimes
timber steel.
I think so. I don't really know the chemical reaction that it does, but I do know it gets brittle. And you have to add something to it to make a glue that's a little bit more pliable when reheated. So I like to add natural beeswax. You can add fat, animal fat. You can add oil. You can add butter if you don't have anything else. Lard. You can add, but I like using wax because wax, when you heat it, it melts just like everything else that I've mentioned as an additive to keep it from getting brittle. It'll melt. I like to add something that when it's dried or cooling, it gets hard again. So that's why I choose wax or beeswax. Beeswax just because it's natural, because I'm not going to go into, Victoria's Secrets and get a nice scented candle and grab some, buy some wax for my primitive glues. No, I'm going to use some beeswax.
Well, if you're making a pretty bow or what have you, you might want to have some of that nice smelling glue.
Well, the other thing you have to do is have a binder to it, and that could be animal feces, dried animal feces from an omnivore, any grass or grain-eating omnivore. But I really don't like messing with poop.
Well,
that's
there's
just
alternatives then, huh?
Yeah, absolutely, and I found that out too. You can use cut up cattail fluff. You can use cut up milkweed fluff. You can use, like in your fire starting kit and your primitive fire starting kit, if you have jute twine or some natural cordage, you can cut the pieces up and just to get some fibrous ends in there, something where the glue will bind to, but not overwhelming. You can use horsehair, dog hair, animal hair, fur, something as a binder. And when you mix all this together, I put it onto a stick, which is an applicator stick, just so I can get it out of the container. As it cools, I mold it into a ball, kind of like silly putty. Okay, and while I'm doing this, I'm using my hands. Sometimes I lick my hands if I don't have any water. I lick my hands and I roll it in it, and to form this ball of pitch. And that's why I don't like using animal poo, because I'm handling it, and sometimes I can't wash my hands in the wild. Blah blah blah. I think there's other alternatives, so I use the alternative.
We got a caller that called in and has something to say or a question, so let's ask Nat to come on in. Are you there, Nat? Hello, Nat? Are you there, Nat? Well, I think we have a caller coming in. Well, I see the switchboard. Let me grab him. Are you there, Nat?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you now, you bet. How are you this evening?
Very good. Hi. My name's Matt Brooks. I just had a question for Jamie. If somebody was just beginning into the bow making, how would you suggest they start, or how can they take one of your classes?
To start, I would go find some sticks and twigs and branches and clear up the rough stuff that doesn't look like a bow and put a stout string on it and just mess around. Just get out there and start putting strings on sticks and seeing how they bend, the way, even if they break, how did it break? Take note of if the wood broke in two pieces or if it broke but it held together. Notice the different qualities or bad things about the wood, about the break and everything else. I mean, apparently you can't pick up a dead birch branch and put a string on it and expect it to hold tension. It's going to break on you. So I would suggest getting out there, use your knife, get to know your tools, use simple tools, and start stringing up some branches and some saplings and just seeing how you can make a bow. And sometimes you can surprise yourself and come out with something really nice. And as far as classes go, I try and put up flyers and internet and go to gatherings and try and get out there myself and try and put on a good class. Usually it's multiple days. Hopefully it's a longer hour. I don't like short classes. I like giving the people their money's worth. I like to sit down and talk, chat. One of the last bow classes I had only had like 9 people in it, and it was only supposed to be like a 6 or 8 hour class. It turned up into an all day event. We got food. They got beverages. We got making bowstrings. We started making a fire. I started showing them how to make primitive arrows, how to fire harden the arrows, how to quick temper their bows. It just turned into in some of them people. This was a while ago. They all stayed in touch, and they're all building bows, and they all had a great time. And you know what? Some of them didn't even finish their bow. They were just more enthralled with just having a good time and learning the skills that we were teaching. It was great.
All right. Thank you very much for taking my call. Thank you, G-Man. Thanks, Jamie.
Hey, appreciate
Thanks, Matt.
you calling.
Thanks for calling.
Take care. Bye.
Bye. Bye, Matt.
Jamie.
Yes, sir.
There was somebody that I ran into earlier today on Facebook, and I sent him a message, and I told this guy, I says, man, I really like you to come on, and I know Jamie'd be happy to see you here. And he said that you had mentioned to ask him that you had asked him to come on. So if you don't mind, we're gonna bring him in. Are you there, surprise caller guest?
I'm here.
Say hi to Joshua, Jamie.
Who's this? Josh who?
Joshua Hamlin.
Hello, Joshua. How are you, my friend?
It's good to hear your voice in person.
Yes, same here.
I got to say, I was so intrigued by the flute that Joshua made for you, and thought that just sounded so cool. I said, I got to talk to this guy, and I could tell because he had made it for you that you guys have got to be buddies. And he said that he's actually never met you, but you guys are friends on Facebook. So, hey, Joshua, welcome aboard, and tell everybody. I mean, you're pretty interesting. I didn't get to talk to you that long, but tell everybody a little bit about yourself, and hammer on Jamie there with a question or two that maybe he don't know an answer for.
I'm Joshua Hamlin. I became friends with Jamie from Facebook because we both have the same skills. We both teach the same things. And we just hit it off. I don't really know a question to ask. How do you like the arrowheads?
They're fantastic. Joshua, we did a trade, and we were sending gifts back and forth to each other, and I ran out of rock because I was too busy making little rocks out of big rocks, and I didn't come up with any heads and any arrowheads, and Joshua was gracious enough to send me some arrowheads made out of glass and some stone, and I mounted them on some primitive arrows, and I'm going to be selling those at the Pathfinder gathering that's coming up here next week.
All right.
I think I got the better end of that bargain, though. I got the hook knife that I used to make this flute with. I got from Jamie, and that little open up. Did I tell you how much I love that thing? That knife is
I
awesome.
hope so, man.
Joshua, I can't help but think that flutes aren't the only thing that you make. You told me, you did mention that you were 2 years out in the wild yourself. Hey, Jamie, I'm going to pull the spotlight off of you for just a moment.
That's perfect. I'd definitely like to hear this.
And can you touch on that 2-year journey a little bit, Joshua? We got plenty of time.
Yeah, I can touch on it. I had been practicing my whole life, and I thought I was good enough to try it. And I've been doing martial arts, so it gave me a lot of confidence, you know. And I thought I was good enough to try it. So I went out into the wilderness with nothing, no tools whatsoever, not even a metal knife, and survived out there for 2 years. But I wasn't good enough, actually. When I got out there, I found out I had to relearn everything because it's a whole lot different doing it on your porch than it is doing it when you need it. So I had to relearn all the skills. It was an important experience for me. It changed my whole perception of life and nature awareness, as you were talking about earlier.
Yeah, I bet. Besides your skill in the flute making, what other kind of crafts have you honed that you're good at?
Man, I do it all. Everything natural that I can get my hands on, I do. From moccasin making, flutes, arrows, bows, just like Jamie, cordage, shelters, traps. Every subject that you can think of, I'm into. Well, I get to live it. I get paid for it. You know, I don't get paid a lot, but I get to live my dream.
Hey, well, that's half the payment right there. If you're enjoying what you do, there are too many poor souls out there that dread going to work. I used to be one of them.
Well, like I said in chat, you couldn't pay me to work.
Yeah.
Money isn't important enough.
Well, that's it. If it's something you enjoy doing, it's not work anymore. And if you get paid for it, that's a bonus. So, I mean, do you have any specialties, Joshua, besides, you know?
I like basket making. It gives me peace. I think that's my specialty. It's my favorite class to teach. It just gives me some kind of inner peace. I can't even explain it. But when you go out, pull some vines out of a tree and turn it into a big, beautiful container, that just satisfies my soul. And then the flutes satisfy my soul, too, because you're turning an ugly stick, ugly dead piece of wood into something beautiful. That's why I like them to stay ugly on the outside. The beauty of the sound comes through.
When you mentioned making the baskets, and I think to the question I asked Jamie about making bowstrings, can you make baskets? Are you weaving? You can use, I would imagine, all kinds of natural materials to do that.
Oh, yeah, and just tons. Just like Jamie was saying, you just go out and test something. The one I found recently that I'm just loving is Euonymus, and it just works so good. I'm surprised at how flexible it is. But, yeah, you just go out and test something. You're not looking for specific species. You're looking for characteristics. If you can bend it over and it doesn't break, then there's a pretty good chance that it'll work if it's long enough.
So it's kind of like a trial and error and practice and enjoy what you're doing.
Yeah. Exactly. It's getting out there and doing it. Exactly.
Jamie, tell everybody again. We got some time, but tell everybody again how they would contact you on Facebook or whatever avenues they can get a hold of you by.
They can get a hold of me by either going to my Facebook page, which is Primitive Michigan on Facebook, and or going to 1 Foot Into the Wild. And that's another page that I belong to, and hopefully everybody's listening in on.
Okay, and Joshua, don't run off yet.
I'm not going.
Okay. The classes that you do, I guess people can get a hold of you on Facebook or contact you to find out when or where, or are they kind of predetermined every year?
Tell them about your big one, Josh.
Oh, me? Okay.
Yeah, throw a plug in.
Okay, I got Boat Art Primitive Skills Gathering coming up in Missouri. Let me post a address to the chat.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's coming up next weekend. I'm excited about it. I'm excited about it every year. Hold on one second. Boat Art Primitive Skills Gathering. It's our 15th year. We got top teachers from all over the country coming there. Best flint nappers I've ever seen are coming. I'm so excited. Jamie's going to be teaching there next year. He couldn't make it this year, but next year he'll be there.
Next year I will be there with bells on.
Okay.
Cool.
And I see you post there. There was a fellow that just put a question up there for you, Jamie. Calls himself Tuck's Dad, and he's asking if you got any tips to share on traditional bow shooting.
I do. You can read a lot of books and a lot of magazines and articles from the top shooters, and they're going to tell you their most helpful hints and tips. And right there, if you're aware of what's going on and what you're reading what works best for them. So you take that information and you go out and try it. If it doesn't work, do what works for you, because that's natural. It isn't natural going out and doing something by the book, by somebody else's book. Okay?
Uh-huh.
It's going out there and get comfortable. There's some basics like keeping your feet at a like a shoulder width stance apart and getting a nice firm base. That's the best advice I can get, because if you don't have a solid platform, you're going to be all over the place. You have to be consistent. If you're consistently shooting a group and you're shooting the bow really quick or off just with no anchor point or whatever, you're doing something in your mind's eye that's repetitive. And if it's working for you, do it. Just the best thing is to practice. And even if you're all over the target, after a while, your mind's eye is going to be let's take, for instance, the best advice I can give about traditional archery and how to shoot and how to aim is crinkling up a piece of paper and shooting a paper ball into a garbage can or a wastebasket. Your arm doesn't have a sight on it. You're not shooting it out of a gun. You're actually calculating how high to throw your arm, when your mind is telling you when to loose the ball of paper, and how hard to throw it. And I guarantee you, if you miss it, you'll think, let me take another shot at it. I can get it this time. Why is your mind telling you can get it this time? Is because your mind already calculated that, I need to throw it a little bit harder. Or, I have to release it at a little bit about this time. It's all about timing. It's all about consistency. It's all about doing the same thing over and over again. After you do the same thing over and over again, you're going to get good. You're going to get repetitiveness. If you get repetitiveness, you can get consistency. And if you can get consistency, you'll be good at primitive archery.
Yeah, well, and practice.
Exactly.
I grew up, my dad was always an avid hunter. I grew up around guns and I still am. I don't shoot as often as I did, but was a very good shot. I don't mind patting myself on the back, but I've shot many, many, many rounds of ammunition to get that good. I've never really thought of it, but it was all the rounds that I put down that barrel.
That's right.
You've got to, and like everything else that you've shared with us tonight, it's hands-on and do it and keep doing it and not to give up. You do it long enough, you can't help but get good at it, or reasonable anyway.
And that's a big thing there, is don't give up. I've been messing with this bow drill every other day by myself in the garage, and I just about can get a coal every time now. But now I'm moving on to the hand drill, and that's given me fits. I mean, I'm telling you, I'm trying every different combination. I'm trying different hearth boards, different spindles, some loops. I'm trying everything, and I tell you, I'm not going to let it whip me. I'm gonna try it, because you know what? It's a whole lot easier not making primitive fire in your garage than it is going out in the woods and not making fire out there. Because I tell you, the more practice you get, the better you're going to be, and the better it's going to be for you.
I did a show here a couple of months ago, and it was a solo show, and it was on how to build shelters, and how it was one week, and the next week I did one on different methods of building fires. And one of the things I was researching, and I never did myself, never have attempted, was a bow drill to start a fire. And I thought, well, it's pretty interesting. I'd like to kind of share that on air. I can read about it and tell about it, but after I got done reading all this, I dropped it. I went ahead and went with the other parts of my show, but I dropped it simply because it's not something that there's no way you can describe it on air. It's a visual thing, and I realized right away not only is it a visual thing, but it's something that you're going to have to sit down and do maybe 100 times before you get one going or get halfway consistent with it.
You know what you're going to not forget? To bring a lighter. That's what you're not going to forget. I guarantee you. I tell you, if all this practice and all this sweating and burning coals in my garage, I've got a lighter or a ferro rod in every single one of my packs, in my pocket, in my car. I don't even smoke. I have a lighter.
Joshua, are you still with us there?
I'm here.
When you did your 2-year excursion, did you have your lighters with you? How did you start your fire?
No lighter. I used bow drill fire.
I
didn't know how to do hand drill back then, so it was all bow drill then. More root.
But you got pretty good at it, huh?
Oh yeah, I can do it in the shower and get a bow drill. I do a demo where I soak all the wood in water and then do a bow drill with it. That's a pretty fun one. That amazes people. You just drop your whole kit into a bucket of water and then get a bow drill with it anyway. The key,
or you make sure that coal doesn't go out.
The key is to don't use downward pressure while you're spinning it until it gets hot enough to dry out, and then make a coal from it. But I hear a lot of people say you can't get it in every situation. That's not true. You can get it in every situation if you practice.
Well, I'm not dipping my set in water anytime soon. I cannot get it every time. I can almost try. I've got the nuances of it. It went to the materials of the wood, of the spindle, of the hearth, and then it went to the size and diameter of the spindle, and then the correlation between the thickness of the spindle and the thickness of the hearth board, and then it went to the diameter of the spindle and the straightness.
Pretty soon it'll be like instinct shooting. You'll just feel it. You'll know when to put the pressure. So that's coming soon.
It'll
You'll
tell
have
you.
it pretty soon.
If you learn to look at the signs, it's going to tell you what you're doing. If you're getting brown smoke, you're not getting downward pressure. Or a brown dust, you're not getting the downward pressure. If it's squeaking, it's going to tell you what you're doing wrong.
Now, Joshua, do you have videos out there too? Did you say?
I do. Let me post a link. I got a YouTube channel that's doing pretty good. Basically, it's just a channel that me and my son are doing because I'm teaching him all these skills. So while I'm teaching him, I'm sharing it with everyone else.
Okay.
So it's just a fun project me and my son can do together, but it seems to be taking off.
Okay. And people can, if the ones that are just listening can't see the chat room, they can get a hold of you on Facebook too.
Yeah, Joshua G. Hamlin on Facebook, or Wild Primitive Skills on YouTube.
Okay. So Joshua G. Hamlin?
Yes.
Okay, on Facebook. So everybody out there, let's check these guys out. Some super information.
We have a
learn
great group. Can I plug that too? We've got a great group on Facebook.
Yeah,
the
please.
Primitive Living Skills channel. Hold on, let me put a link there to it. This group is also taking off. We got 777 members today, and it's only been here for 2 months. So I'm pretty proud of how it's gone.
Wow. Yeah, that's cool. I'll bet there's a lot of... Have I joined it?
Yeah, I added you. I didn't
All right,
ask, but
thanks.
I
I should check it out. The problem I have there with that is, and I feel guilty sometimes, is I belong to 6 groups, and they're all great, but I don't have. I need 36-hour days, and I ain't got them.
Yeah,
I hear that.
Oh, what were you going to say about it, Joshua?
I posted a link, and you can find this if you're not in the chat. It is it's Primitive Living Skills and Flint Napping on Facebook. So Come join us. It's a very active group, and there's tons and tons of information there.
Yes, tons.
Okay, back to you real quick, Jamie. In this last few minutes, have you got something that maybe you wanted to say that I didn't touch on, or that you might have just remembered? A topic you wanted to visit?
I just like to get people in the woods. I mean, my classes aren't about just paying a bunch of money and just sitting down and carving on a board stave from Lowe's. I just want to really show the people what they're missing, or what they may be missing, or just teaching. I guess I really have a drive to teach people and to learn this. One, because I don't want to make 5 dozen arrows at a sitting. I want other people to make arrows at a sitting. I want them to experience it. I want them to really grasp, the skills that I'm trying to teach and promote. And it's getting better for me, because now, to keep my prices down low in the classes, so I don't have to pay up this crazy gas prices to travel all over. I'm getting some sponsors, and people are taking care of me, like Dave Canterbury, Silky Saws. They're actually sponsoring me to do some of this stuff, and I'm telling you, it's really getting bigger than I thought it would be. But I like it. I love it. I love it.
Well,
as long as I can get, as long as some of my expenses for traveling and whatever can be covered, I'm there. I'm there to teach the kids. If it's close, I'm not looking for money. I'm there to teach the kids.
Yeah. And Joshua, how about, you got any closing comments or any tips for those out there listening?
I agree with Jamie. Get out in the woods. Even if you have no skill whatsoever, just get out there. It'll give you peace in your soul. You'll get skills. They'll come to you by being there. Just go out there.
All right. Well, with all that being said, I'm going to say, gosh darn, Jamie, I thank you so much for coming on. I'm not going to have, I think you heard at the start of the show that next week will be my last show, but I will pop in and probably do a show from time to time, and I hope that I can contact you and you too, Joshua, and of course I mentioned to Joshua we got a show every day of the week, but there's only a few others that I know would more than appreciate to have either one of you guys back on, to share these things again, somewhere down the future. And I hope you're willing and will consider it too.
Most definitely. I mean, there's a whole lot more to primitive skills than bow making, atlatls, and primitive arrows and flint napping. It's learning to take care of the woods that we're all enjoying so much. We're not really owners; we're just caretakers. We're
right.
We got to take care of it for it to take care of us. And
well, no better feeling, too, than to show somebody something that you know and watch them learn and have, acquire them skills to share that knowledge with somebody, especially the younger kids, too.
Yeah.
That's just super. Well, I had asked Joshua if he would, in closing, if he would take us out with some little music, and I asked him to do this for you, Jamie. So I want to thank both once again, and Joshua, whenever you're ready, if you'll take us out of this show, I'd appreciate it.
We will.
Can you hear it? He made this flute for him.
Yeah, we can hear you. Keep going, Josh. We'll give you a minute.
Thanks.
Hey,
nice.
Thank you guys. Hey, it's a pretty cool present you got there, huh?
Oh, man, I can't wait.
All right.
I'm sending it tomorrow. You get it tomorrow. It'll take 2 days. Then it takes day.
Hey, thanks, you guys, and I'll be looking for you on Facebook. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
All right, you guys all have a good evening. You two out there in chat, thanks for joining us, and check out the show schedule page on the website. We've got a lot of good shows, and this new one coming up in a couple of weeks to take my place will be great, too. You all have a great weekend. Thanks, everybody, for being here. Thanks, Joshua. Thanks, Jamie. Everybody have a good weekend. Good night.